Now, Matthew McVarnish has just completed a 10,000-mile walk across Europe to campaign for a change in child sex abuse laws. The former River City actor visited 32 capital cities and held meetings with government ministers and child protection organisations to push for the abolition of the legal time limit in reporting the crime. He filmed his journey as he went.
Just crossed the border into Germany and see that sign? That sign means go as fast as you want. Kind of looks good, but actually it's sand. So it's kind of like walking up a beach. 469 kilometers.
And Matthew is with us now, looking splendid in his kilt. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're just back from your epic walk. What do you think you've achieved?
Well, I was walking to raise awareness, you know. Like, I've walked to every single capital, and because that was extraordinary, I managed to attract the media in every country. So I've been on TV, radio, newspapers in 30 languages. And I know, like, in the UK, child sexual abuse is in the media a lot, but in some countries, the journalists would tell me I'm the first man they've ever met who talks about having been sexually abused. So that was my first goal. And the other thing was to encourage discussion of this outdated law, which we've managed to encourage it across all 47 nations in Europe, so I'm kind of chuffed.
Just explain what the law is and why you think it's so important that they get rid of it in many of these countries.
Well, it seems surreal in the UK to even talk about this, but in other countries in Europe they have this thing called the statute of limitations, and what it means is I was sexually abused by my uncle, Terence McMonagle. He abused me until I was 13, but I didn't press charges until I was 25. And because that was in Scotland, he was immediately arrested and went to prison. But if he'd abused me in like the Czech Republic or Lithuania, when I pressed charges, the police would have said, "You've missed your chance, this crime has expired." And so that's what's happening. I met survivors across Europe who tell me they've been to the police and made the reports, and their offenders still working with children because they can't, even the police who believe the evidence say, we can't act on this because of this strange, outdated law. So it was just to try and encourage discussion of that and see what we can do to get that changed.
And so it's because of what happened to you when you were a child that spurred you on to undertake this journey in the first place? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, it happens to every fifth person, so we need to get a lot more discussion of this happening. So. And you know, how much of a shadow has it played over your life? What happened to you?
Well, I mean, yeah, but when I was 17, I was suffering from depression. I was suicidal. I was experimenting with illegal drugs, and I was deeply confused about my sexuality. But you know, I began to talk about it. Went to the Moira Anderson Foundation, you know, and the Road to Change has kind of showed me that there is nothing fortunate about being sexually abused. But I was fortunate to be sexually abused in Scotland because we have incredible services here who are waiting to listen to you. We've got a police force who will listen to you and act on your information. We have no laws that stop you. So,
as you travelled across Europe, what kind of reception did you get as you went from country to country?
Yeah, I mean, it was varied, obviously, mostly positive. From the survivors themselves, entirely, they embraced the Road to Change. But yeah, in some of the countries, like I was invited to speak at the United Nations, and I spoke about how children are sexually abused in every country, but the way every country deals with it and the reasons are silent about it are different. You know, because if you imagine a significant part of the EU used to be Soviet, and the adults in that territory were explaining that there's a sensibility of secrecy, and so it was difficult in those areas. And any country that was predominantly religious was difficult, but. Yeah, but that's the kind of thing I spoke about at the UN, was just like, you know, this is happening everywhere. There's no equality with the legislation, but yeah, it's on the whole, it's went really well.
And what was it like, you know, a day-to-day experience of walking 30 miles across Europe? You must have had some wonderful experiences as well, some traumatic ones as well, speaking to some of the survivors.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of knackered. Like
You are 10,000 miles, who
well,
wouldn't be?
it was an average. It was 30 miles a day. On Thursday there, I walked from George Square to Edinburgh Castle. That was 44 miles. That was my longest day ever walking. But it was great. I would walk 30 miles a day. My colleague Stig would drive 30 miles a day, and he and I would sleep in the van. And Amanda, my other colleague, she would fly ahead to the city I'm walking to, and with the help of the British Embassy, she would set up the meetings with the government and the press. And so the three of us and my brother Mojo, we're all full-time unpaid volunteers. But you know, it's been great.
And you had an audience with the Pope. How did that
Aye.
come about?
Well, I just wrote to Pope Francis, and I knew when I'd get to Rome. So a year before I got there, I wrote and I said, like, I'm trying to raise awareness of this. And I know we raised awareness. We raised awareness with hundreds of millions in Europe. But if Pope Francis had made a comment, it would have reached billions. You know. And that's what this needs. I mean, it's every fifth person. It's about time we got on with it. And but you know, I was astounded that we got in the door of the Vatican, but delighted as well, of course. And for me as a survivor, because I see it on a daily basis that I was sexually abused by my uncle, but I wish everyone who's been abused could be acknowledged in that way. To have the Pope look you in the eye with compassion and say, you know, I'm sorry, that shouldn't have happened to you. For me on my journey, that was transformative. I'm not Catholic, but you know, he's a wonderful presence to be in the presence of, you know.
And what next then for this project? Is this the end of it, or where'd you go next? Very briefly, we've got 30 seconds left.
Well, I've got about 6 months of physio because I've knackered both my legs, but I've been invited back to Strasbourg to advise the Council of Europe on the abolishment across all 47 countries. That's the next step.
And a book as well.
I'll write a book, and Amanda's going to do the documentary, and Stig's going to join the ambulance service, so it's all good. It's all good.
Well, Matty, thank you so much for coming on, and I would imagine you appreciate a bit of a sit down after 10,000 miles. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Bless you.
Thank you.